Before we dive into this story that's sure to move you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It might seem like a small thing, but that simple action makes a huge difference. It's what keeps this channel going and gives me the strength to keep bringing these stories to you. Now take a deep breath, because what comes next is powerful. The golden sunset bathed the Ipanema boardwalk in a warm, cinematic glow. Tourists strolled past chic cafes, surfers rinsed off in beach showers, and at the edge of the sidewalk, Lara stood with a woven basket clutched to her curvy waist. She was breathtaking. Deep bronze skin, loose dark curls, and full lips with a tired smile. She wore a tight white summer dress that hugged her hips and fluttered at her thighs, barefoot on the hot stone mosaic. A group of rich girls in designer sunglasses giggled as they passed her. "Sellin' pity now, basket girl," one muttered. Lara didn't flinch. "Boa tarde," she said with calm grace. A few meters away, an old man in a wrinkled beige suit struggled to open a bottle of water. His hands trembled violently. Lara watched for a moment, then stepped toward him. "Would you like help, sir?" The old man raised his eyes. They were ice blue, piercing. "You still see people like me?" he asked, voice fragile and hollow. She gently took the bottle, cracked it open with ease, and handed it back to him. "Everyone deserves to be seen," she replied softly. He stared at her in silence, as if her words reached somewhere deeper than memory. "What's your name?" he finally asked. "Lara. Yours? Call me Augusto." His smile was faint, as though it had been buried for decades. Lara took a small woven basket from her stack and placed it beside him on the bench. "This is for you, handcrafted, but this is your livelihood. Why give it away?" he asked, genuinely confused. She smiled, her amber eyes glowing. "Because you look like you need kindness more than I need money today." He picked up the basket delicately, his fingers brushing the weave like it was made of glass. In that moment, the lonely billionaire felt something no inheritance had ever brought him: connection without cost. The next morning, Lara was back at the same spot, under a jacaranda tree blooming with violet petals. She laid out her baskets in a neat row, adjusting each with care. Her hands were swift, but her mind wandered to the old man from yesterday. "Bet he forgot me already," she whispered to herself, brushing dust from her skirt. But as if summoned by thought, a sleek black car pulled up near the curb. A chauffeur stepped out and opened the door. Out came Augusto, dressed in a crisp navy suit, walking slowly with a cane. His presence turned heads, but his eyes searched only for her. Lara stood, confused. "Mr. Augusto?" He smiled. "You didn't think I'd forget you, did you?" She blinked, caught off guard. I thought it was just a kind moment." It was, and rare ones like that deserve to be remembered. He handed her a folded envelope. "This is for your kindness." Inside, she found 5 crisp 100 real notes. Her heart raced. I can't accept this." "You already gave more than this is worth," he said calmly, eyes locked onto hers. "Just consider it. A return on dignity." People nearby started watching. Some whispered. One of the same rich girls from before passed by and scoffed, "Guess you're selling more than baskets now." Lara's face flushed, but she stood tall. "Kindness doesn't make me cheap. It makes you small." Augusto turned to the girl, his stare cold and cutting. "That's quite a voice for someone who's never worked a day in her life." The girl froze and walked off in silence. Lara looked at him, puzzled. "You talk like you've dealt with people like her all your life." He smiled faintly. "Because I have. And I'm done pretending they matter." Later that day, Augusto invited Lara to sit with him at a beachside kiosk shaded by faded red umbrellas. The ocean roared softly in the distance, and she nervously adjusted the strap of her dress, still clutching her baskets. "You don't have to stay long," he said, sipping his espresso. "Just thought you might enjoy a seat with a view." She finally sat, folding her legs and placing the baskets gently at her feet. "You don't seem like someone who needs company." "Only because no one believes I deserve it," he replied. His tone was quiet, but the weight behind his words made her chest tighten. "I don't understand," she said. "You dress well. You speak like a professor." He chuckled. Once I was, then I became something worse. Rich. She tilted her head. Is that worse? Augusto looked out at the sea, then back at her. When it hides you from people like you? Yes. The following week, Lara's life slowly began to shift. Augusto returned every morning, each time buying a new basket, never bargaining, never questioning. He brought her coffee once, then a simple sun hat. To protect that brilliant head of yours, he joked. She laughed louder with each visit, her posture more relaxed, and every now and then her fingers brushed his as he paid. But that week also brought something darker. A silver car pulled up near her corner one afternoon. Out stepped a tall, muscular man in an expensive suit, followed by a perfectly styled woman with icy green eyes. It was her fake mother and brother, the ones who had once taken her in to use her story for sympathy and media exposure, then abandoned her with nothing. They smiled as if nothing had happened. Lara, there you are, darling. We've been looking for you. Her body tensed, hands gripping the basket edge. What do you want? The man's smile was slick. We have a new sponsor coming, and we need our little charity mascot back. Lara stood, her body trembling with anger. You kicked me out like garbage? The woman smiled, adjusting her pearl earring. That was a misunderstanding. We were under stress. You know how family is. You're not my family, Lara snapped, voice sharp as broken glass. Tourists nearby slowed their steps, sensing tension. Augusto, seated under the umbrella a few meters away, calmly observed the scene. The suited man stepped closer. You'll come, or I'll tell everyone you lied about your past. We still control the story, Lara. Before she could answer, Augusto rose from his seat and approached like a storm in slow motion. Is this how you treat someone who gave you their trust? He asked, voice low but dangerous. The couple blinked, sizing up the old man. And who are you supposed to be? Augusto smiled with ice in his eyes. I'm the man who sees value where you see leverage. The man chuckled arrogantly. You think she's special? She was nothing when we found her. Augusto's face hardened. No, she was light. You tried to bottle it and sell it. Lara's breath caught. She looked at Augusto like she was seeing him for the first time. The woman scoffed. This girl isn't yours to save, Grandpa. No, he replied. She's not mine, but she's no longer yours to ruin. He turned to Lara gently. Do you trust me? Still shaking, she nodded. Yes. Augusto looked back at the couple. Then this conversation is over. Two men in discreet suits appeared from across the street. Security, silent and precise. Please escort these people away from the boardwalk and ensure they don't return, Augusto ordered. The couple protested, but the guards moved in, and within seconds they were gone, like smoke in the sea wind. The silence that followed was louder than their voices had ever been. Lara sat back down slowly, her pulse still racing. Augusto remained standing for a moment, then eased himself into the chair beside her. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. I did, he replied. Not because you needed a savior, but because no one stood for you when they should have. She stared at him, her throat tightening. Why me? He studied her face. Because you gave without expectation. You loved without benefit. You made me feel seen, Lara. She looked away, blinking quickly. I'm not used to people choosing me. Well, get used to it, he said, his tone soft but firm. I don't invest lightly. A breeze passed through, lifting strands of her hair. For the first time in years, she felt safe. The next morning, Lara arrived at her usual spot to find it empty. No baskets, no Augusto. Her heart sank. But before she could panic, a sleek black car pulled up. The driver stepped out, handing her a sealed envelope. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten note. Today, I want to show you something. Don't worry about the baskets. Your place is elsewhere now. A. Below it, an address. Lara hesitated, then climbed into the back seat. As the car pulled into the leafy streets of Jardim Botanico, she felt her chest tighten. The car stopped in front of a massive white colonial mansion covered in bougainvilleas. The gate opened. Two maids stood waiting. Welcome, Miss Lara, one said. Mr. Augusto is expecting you for lunch. Lara stepped out, barefoot, basket still in hand, completely unaware that her entire life was about to change. Lara stepped into the mansion, her bare feet sinking into polished marble. The air smelled of orchids and old money. Paintings lined the walls, portraits of powerful men in tailored suits. She moved slowly, unsure whether to admire or escape. From the dining hall, the smell of feijoada and freshly baked pão de queijo drifted toward her. Augusto stood at the head of a long carved table, now in a cream linen shirt and slacks, freshly shaved, eyes alert. "You came," he said, smiling like a man who'd waited years for something fragile to arrive. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "I don't belong here." He gestured to a chair. "Neither did I. For decades. Until someone reminded me what mattered." She sat, placing her basket on the floor beside her like a child clinging to memory. "Why me, Augusto?" He poured her juice, then replied, "Because no one's ever dared to look past my wealth, except you." Over lunch, they spoke like old friends. Lara told him of her parents, street vendors who died too young, her struggle to survive, the fake family who used her. Augusto listened without interruption, his hands folded, his eyes never leaving hers. "You know," he said finally, "I built empires from nothing, but I never learned how to be loved without condition." She stared down at her plate, swallowing hard. "I'm not sure I know how to offer that." He reached across the table and gently touched her wrist. "You already did. On a park bench, with a basket." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't think it mattered." "It did," he said softly. "It saved me from vanishing." Silence stretched between them, but it was full, not empty. Outside, the wind swayed the palms gently, as if Rio itself was holding its breath. That evening, Lara wandered through the garden behind the mansion. Barefoot on wet grass, she touched flowers she'd only seen in books. She found Augusto seated near a koi pond, watching the fish glide beneath floating blossoms. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine. He looked up as she approached. "Did you enjoy lunch?" "I forgot food could taste like that," she said, laughing gently. He smiled, then turned serious. "Lara, I'm not just some old man who got lucky. I'm Augusto Noguera. I built half the resorts in this city." Her eyes widened, mouth parting in disbelief. "You're that Noguera?" He nodded. "I've been called visionary, tycoon, a monster, but never until you, friend." She sat beside him on the stone bench. "Why hide it? Because when people see power, they forget how to be real." Lara stared out over the koi pond, her heart a storm of emotions. "So, why me? What do you want from me, really?" He turned to her, his voice suddenly raw. "I want to invest in something priceless, your freedom." She blinked, confused. "Freedom? You've spent your life surviving. Let me give you space to choose. Not because you owe me, but because you inspired me." Tears clung to her lashes. "I don't want your money." "I'm not offering money," he said gently. "I'm offering truth." From his blazer, he pulled out a folder and handed it to her. Inside were legal documents, deeds, business shares, and something else. A press release draft stating Lara as the new creative director of a luxury artisan line launching under his name. She dropped the folder onto her lap, stunned. "Why would you do this?" Augusto met her gaze. "Because you were the first person to give without asking who I was. Now I'm doing the same." Days passed, and the announcement went live. Headlines across Brazil read, "From basket girl to luxury icon, meet Lara, the soul behind Noguera's new empire." Photos of her barefoot on the boardwalk were now framed beside glossy shots of her in silk, holding one of her handmade pieces. But not everyone celebrated. Her fake family resurfaced, this time with a lawsuit, claiming they had discovered her and deserved a share of her success. Lara stared at the papers in disbelief, hands trembling. "They're trying to erase everything I built?" Augusto looked over the documents calmly. "Then we show them what real legacy looks like." He picked up his phone and made one call. "Schedule the press conference. I'm ready to speak." Lara swallowed hard. "What are you going to say?" Augusto looked at her with pride. "The truth," And it starts with who you really are. The next morning, the conference room of a luxury hotel in Copacabana overflowed with journalists. Cameras clicked, lights flashed, and at the center, Lara sat beside Augusto, both poised and silent. He adjusted the mic. For decades, I built resorts. Today, I'm building something greater. Honesty. He paused. Months ago, I was ignored on a bench in Ipanema. Everyone saw a weak old man, except one girl. Lara's chest rose with emotion. That girl didn't ask for my name or my bank balance. She gave me water, dignity, and a basket. A photo of her holding the same basket appeared on the projector. She's now the creative director of our most important division. And as for the people trying to claim her, Augusto's gaze sharpened. They'll have to sue me, not her, because I gave her everything legally. The room erupted. Lara covered her mouth, overwhelmed, and somewhere, behind the cameras, her fake family watched, powerless. Outside the press room, Lara and Augusto stood on the hotel balcony overlooking the sea. The city buzzed below, but around them, it felt silent. She leaned against the railing, heart pounding with everything that had just unfolded. "They're going to hate me now," she whispered. Augusto stepped closer. "Let them. They lost the right to your story the moment they tried to sell it." Lara turned to face him. "I don't know how to live like this, with cameras, headlines, people pretending to love me." He looked at her with a quiet tenderness. "Then let's live differently. In truth, in silence, when needed. In strength, always." The air between them grew still. Lara took a step forward. "Augusto, what are we?" He smiled faintly. "We're two people who found each other when no one was looking." She nodded. "That sounds like a beginning." Weeks later, the artisan line launched in a beachfront gallery in Leblon. The baskets sold out in hours. Each one carried a tag, crafted with soul by Lara. She wore a flowing crimson dress, her curls pinned to one side, eyes lined with golden shimmer, elegance wrapped in authenticity. Augusto stood nearby, dressed in charcoal linen, smiling as he watched her shine. An influencer approached, eager for a photo. "Are you two together?" Lara blushed. Before she could answer, Augusto stepped in. "Not yet, but if the lady allows, I'd like to change that." Lara laughed, her hand resting gently on his arm. "Ask me properly, then." He reached into his blazer, pulled out a velvet box, and opened it right there, under the gallery lights. A simple gold band sat inside, timeless, real, like her. The room quieted. "Lara," he said softly, "will you share not just your art, but your life, with me?" The gallery stood in silence, the scent of fresh flowers mixing with the ocean breeze that drifted through the open doors. Lara stared at the ring, then at Augusto. Her lips trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of finally being chosen, not for appearances, not for utility, but for who she was. Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if we promise never to lose the people we were when we met." Augusto nodded slowly. "That's the only version of us I want." Applause broke out across the gallery. Cameras flashed, but neither of them noticed. They were lost in something deeper than spectacle. He slid the ring onto her finger with hands that once trembled from loneliness, but now felt steady with love. Lara leaned forward and kissed his cheek, smiling. "I guess I'm not a basket girl anymore," she said playfully. Augusto's eyes sparkled. "No, now you're the woman who wove my world back together." News of the engagement spread like wildfire. Headlines ran with titles like "From Street Corner to High Society, The Basket Queen's Rise," and "Billionaire Bends the Knee in Leblon." But Lara ignored the noise. She moved into a modest guest house on Augusto's estate, still barefoot most days, still weaving baskets by hand. One afternoon, she opened a letter from a young girl who wrote, "I used to be ashamed of selling in the street. Now I feel proud." Lara pressed the paper to her heart. That evening, she hosted a free workshop in Ipanema, teaching young kids how to weave. Augusto watched from a shaded corner, unseen but glowing with admiration. When a local reporter asked why she still worked with her hands, she replied, Because the moment you stop touching the roots of who you are, you forget how to bloom. And in that moment, even the sun seemed to linger a little longer on her smile. But not all applause was sincere. Her fake mother and brother, bitter and humiliated after being publicly dismissed, began scheming again. They forged old documents, faked messages, and sold stories to tabloids, claiming Lara had manipulated Augusto for wealth, that she was never truly poor. One headline read, "Billionaire duped by gold digger basket girl?" Lara found out when a stranger spit near her feet on the street. Back home, she threw the paper down and burst into tears. "They're trying to erase me again." Augusto took her hand. "Then we make sure they never succeed." He picked up his phone. "It's time to remind the world who you really are, and who they really are too." Lara wiped her face. "No more hiding, no more silence." "Exactly," Augusto said. "We tell the story, but this time we write the ending." A week later, in an exclusive televised interview, Lara sat in front of the nation. She wore a simple cream dress, no jewelry, no makeup, just truth. "I never asked to be famous," she began. "I just wanted to be seen. And when I gave that old man water, I had no idea I was watering my own future." Clips played, her weaving on the street, giving the basket, teaching children. Then came the bombshell. Augusto joined her on camera. "The people who call her a gold digger once stole from her. They used her face, her trauma, her name for profit, while she slept on the floor." He produced legal records, falsified adoption papers, fraudulent donations, false charity filings, all in their names. Lara looked straight into the camera. "I am not their invention. I am my own story." The country watched, breathless. The backlash against her fake family was immediate and merciless. Social media exploded with fury. Hashtags trended. "Justice for Lara," or "From Baskets to Brilliance." "Expose the liars." Government agencies opened investigations into their fraudulent charity foundation. Reporters camped outside their luxury condo in Barra da Tijuca, demanding answers. Meanwhile, Lara sat quietly in her garden, barefoot, weaving another basket. "It doesn't feel like revenge," she told Augusto. He smiled. "Because it isn't. It's truth, and that lasts longer than rage." The phone rang. It was a public school director asking if Lara would lead a citywide artisan program. She glanced at Augusto. "What do you think?" He leaned in. "I think the girl who gave without asking deserves to teach the world how to do the same." She nodded slowly. "Then let's begin." On a warm Sunday morning, Lara stood before a group of children on the very sidewalk where it all began. Tourists walked past, but this time they stopped to listen. Each child held a tiny basket, carefully woven, each one different. "I want you to remember," she told them, "this isn't just straw and string. It's patience. It's pride. It's your story." A little boy raised his hand. "Miss Lara, do rich people still make fun of you?" She knelt beside him. "Sometimes. But now I know that their laughter doesn't define me. What I create does." From across the street, Augusto watched from a bench under the same jacaranda tree where they first met. He looked older but brighter, whole. In his hands he held the very first basket she ever gave him, still intact. And on the inside rim, now engraved in gold, were the words, "Seen, loved, never bought." The seasons shifted. Summer faded into a softer autumn. Lara's workshops spread across Rio, from Ipanema to Complexo do Alemão. She refused to let cameras follow her, except when children asked for selfies. "Only if we're all smiling," she'd say. One afternoon, she came home to find a long table set in the garden. Candles flickered. Soft samba played. Augusto stood beneath a canopy of lanterns, holding a single white rose. "You always catch me off guard," she said, laughing. He took her hands gently. "I've planned many things in my life. This is the only one that matters." She went still. Augusto knelt on one knee. "You gave me purpose. You gave me back my name. Will you give me your heart? Officially?" Her hands flew to her face as tears fell freely. "Yes, I already did, the moment I opened that water bottle." And under the Rio night sky, she kissed him like it was the first and last time. Their wedding was unlike anything the elite had ever seen. No gold-trimmed chandeliers or crystal towers. Instead, it was held in a public square in Santa Teresa, under strings of papal picado and lights. The guests were weavers, street kids, maids, cooks, and a few surprised politicians. Lara wore a dress made entirely of recycled silk scraps and basket weaving, handmade by artisans she taught. Augusto wore linen and no shoes at her request. "So we both remember where we started," she'd said. As they exchanged vows, a sudden breeze lifted her veil and petals scattered across the plaza. "I promise to never let you disappear," he whispered. "And I promise to never stop seeing you," she replied. A cheer rose from the crowd, drums beat, and dancers twirled in celebration. Love wasn't just witnessed that day. It was rebuilt, hand-woven, and sung into the streets. 1 year later, Lara walked barefoot through the same boardwalk in Ipanema, now with a child on her hip, her niece, whom she'd taken in after the girl's mother abandoned her. Vendors called her by name, offering fruit, smiles, respect. She still carried baskets, not to sell, but to give, each one a symbol. Tourists often asked for photos, and she'd say yes if they listened to her story first. She told them about the old man on the bench, the cruel laughs, the broken beginnings, but also about the moment someone chose to love her without asking for anything back. She paused at the bench where she'd first met Augusto. He sat there again, smiling, waiting, as always. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I never thought life could be this soft," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "Because you were always busy surviving. Now you're allowed to live." In their home, above the fireplace, hung a large frame, not of their wedding, not of press coverage, but of the original basket Lara gave him. Below it, a single line etched in brass. "Kindness is the thread that weaves empires." Lara went on to build schools, artisan centers, and therapy programs using her wealth, never once forgetting who she'd been. Augusto, now mostly retired, spent his mornings beside her, hands sometimes shaky, but eyes always steady. One evening, as the sun dipped over Arpoador, he looked at her and said, "Of all the deals I've made, loving you was the only one that made me rich." She smiled, gently lacing her fingers through his. And as waves crashed below and the world kept turning, a poor basket girl and a forgotten billionaire, both once invisible, stood hand in hand, no longer needing to be seen, because now they simply were. If this story moved you in any way, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Honestly, every like, every subscription is what keeps this channel breathing. Without your support, it's nearly impossible to keep going. So if you can help, know that this only exists because of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next story.